I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. A quote by Maya Angelou. It is not the strength of the body that counts, but the strength of the spirit, from J.R.R. Tolkien. Hi, everybody. I am Lois from Finding Your Feet After Failure, and I am so grateful to welcome our guest today, Kerry Walsh. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Kerry Walsh is a dynamic motivational speaker, accessibility activist, and author. She defied the odds after being diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy at 1 year old. Her journey, marked by resilience and familial support, led her to become a passionate advocate at the age of 17. Kerry's platform at K Motivation SA, initially aimed at sharing her experiences, evolved into a place to help others with disabilities. With an honours degree in communication, Kerry now champions change and accessibility as a communication specialist, embodying the transformative power of resilience and advocacy. Her memoir, Finding My Feet, a rare warrior's journey through SMA and the unknown, is a heartfelt story with insights into love, fun, family, acceptance, and the navigation of independence. Sure, that's quite a story you've got to share, Kerry.
Just the tidbits.
So I think to start, just tell us, what is spinal muscular atrophy?
So, spinal muscular atrophy is a genetic disorder. It attacks the muscles within your body, and as you get older, you slowly deteriorate. So, eventually, you won't be able to move your muscles, breathe, swallow, etc. on your own.
Gosh, that is quite a scary diagnosis.
It's quite intimidating. I think you always wait for the day where suddenly something's changed quite drastically. But we've come to realize that it's quite a slow, sort of gradual decrease. But I mean, we've definitely seen a couple of changes over the years. I think you just got to sort of accept the fate and hope that you can do as much as you can before it gets too bad.
Do you recall at what age or your first understanding that you were different to others?
Yeah, I think my first understanding was definitely sort of the end of primary school. You get to the age of where you want to fit in because all children do, and you quickly realize that you're not quite the same, and fitting in isn't quite going to be like everybody else.
Oh, and how did that make you feel?
I think it's always difficult to stand out and be different. It took me many years to sort of accept my difference and be happy within the body that I have. But in the beginning, you just feel like a bit of an outsider.
Gosh. And then at the age 17, you took it into your own hands. Tell us about that.
So when I was 17, I was asked to speak at an all boys school around casual day. And originally I was like, I'm not a speaker. No, thank you. And then my mother said, yeah, sure, she'll do it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I have to do it now. And managing to connect with sort of young teenage boys who mostly don't think of much more than sport or themselves was quite interesting to realize that I had made an interesting connection with quite young teenage boys, but they were more or less my age, but they could understand what I was saying and they felt something out of it. So I think in that moment, it sort of lit something in me that I was like, oh, maybe this is worth something or my story is worth hearing.
And how did you start sharing? How did you start becoming an advocate?
So originally I was sharing my experiences on Twitter and Facebook, mostly about like accessibility and places I'd been and sort of like experiences that I had. These developed into blog posts where I managed to share my story and get quite deep and personal into my life, my feelings, my relationships, my experiences, sort of culminated all together within the blogs. And yeah, I worked on my motivational speaking and then got quite into it for quite a few years. it obviously slowed down due to COVID and then me getting a full-time job. And then this year was the book, because it was the next step in sharing my story.
Well, how I discovered you was seeing the title of your book, Finding Your Feet. Now, obviously, that is very different to my Finding Your Feet After Failure. Yours was literally finding your feet.
Yeah, quite an interesting way of finding a title and finding a connection to sort of finding your feet in this crazy world that we live in.
Well, before we get into a bit more detail about your book, can you recall any mistake you've made on your journey, any failure you've had, small or big?
No, definitely. And I mean, this question was quite interesting because we don't normally focus on our failures. Like, we like to project all our achievements and positive things, but it's also about remembering that we're all human and that we all make mistakes. I think for me, the biggest failure I've ever felt was we had done a whole lot of fundraising for a new wheelchair because unfortunately they're very expensive. And we had gone and purchased a wheelchair from an individual, and he had then ditched the country and stolen our money. And I had felt like I had let everyone down, because I then had to look the people in the eye who lent us money and said, I'm really sorry, this is what's happened. You also have to look them in the eye and say, we are also going to fundraise again. But how is anyone meant to trust you? I definitely had come to the realization that it wasn't entirely my fault, and I couldn't have avoided the entire situation, but you still feel relatively responsible.
Oh, and how did you overcome that?
I definitely had to make peace with the fact that a lot of it was not in my control, and he was going to do what he was going to do if I was involved or not. And maybe we managed to save other people by sharing about it and understanding what he had done. But I also had to just sort of move forward with the fact that if people really did trust me and were willing to trust what we were fundraising for, they would forgive us and we would be able to move forward in a way.
And I'm sure they did forgive you.
They did. I think they understood more than I did, even though it wasn't entirely our fault. But yeah, they forgave us. We managed to fundraise again after many years and a lot of sort of emotional turmoil to be able to put.
And were you able to forgive yourself?
I think I learned the lesson of research and maybe working quite hard into, what is it, measure twice, do it once sort of concept. But yes, I think I've managed to move on and forgive myself, because it's important to give yourself the chance to make mistakes. But if you don't move on, you're not learning from it.
And what about any mistake that you were totally responsible for?
Um, it's so hard to think of something so specific, but I guess it would be not wanting to. I've always projected the concept of not giving up, but then at a stage in my life was really willing to call quits and be done with it. And I think that is a big mistake personally, because you're not, you're projecting an image that isn't you, but you're also not giving yourself the chance. So for me, it was being willing to call it quits after quite a long medical struggle, but realizing that that wasn't me, and it was quite important to push past that.
Sure, calling it quits. So many of us give up on any project, on any idea, on our lives, on all kinds of things. We give up. We just say, oh, it's not working. I don't know what to do next. So how did you find what to do next and how to approach not giving up?
I found a lot of strength in the people around me. I found a lot of strength in like my family and what I considered to be my purpose. And I found purpose in being an advocate for people in my situation and being a part of championing the change that I really wanted to see in order to make the world a better place.
So what rewards has that given you, being this champion?
I've had so many great experiences meeting so many wonderful different kinds of people. I've been so lucky to meet like different industries and been introduced to different kinds of people. I've learned about different diseases and disabilities through that. That's widened my scope and broadened my horizons. And I've also just got so much value out of it. And I think giving yourself value and purpose gives you the chance to literally be and do anything.
Now, tell us a little bit about your book. What prompted you to write it, and how did you find the title, Finding Your Feet?
I've always loved writing. Writing is definitely my way of, I call it my therapy. It's like cathartic and you get your feelings out, but it's also the best way to create awareness and also to store your memories. And for me, my book was about having something around when I'm not around. It's sort of something I can leave behind in the world that I hope brings value and purpose, or some sort of dedication and understanding that people would like to learn from. And that was really important to me. The title is part of one of my blog posts, was all about sort of finding my feet, as in finding my place in this world and finding my purpose. And for that, a lot of it was my life is about not having control all the time, but managing to find my own way of controlling what I have.
And you certainly seem to be doing that very well.
Thanks. I'm trying. Not all of it works.
So, Kerry, you came up with the words perspective, encouragement, resilience, empathy, and hope. Do you want to talk us through each of those words, starting with perspective?
Definitely. I think my story gives people a different viewpoint into people with disabilities. I hope it's more educational and it gives a perspective into sort of what my world is, because if they understand it, then they will be able to, create a way of connecting. And maybe if you understand people, you'll be more open to them.
That's so important, understanding, because people don't understand. They just make assumptions, and then they also get embarrassed and they don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the more education and awareness we have, then the more open and connected everyone.
Great. Then you spoke of encouragement.
I think it's about finding encouragement for, I say both sides. So the people who have a disability and the people who live or work with someone with a disability. It's encouraging people to understand, but also give them the chance at success. I want someone, a future someone in my sort of position, to feel that they can literally do anything they set their mind to.
Great. And you mentioned earlier support. You got through a lot of it through having support from family and friends. That is so important, to have that encouragement and support.
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten this far without my family.
Great. Your next word was resilience.
Yeah, that for me, that's a big one. It's a big part of, doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, you got to pull yourself back up again. It's remembering that you're not alone in bringing yourself back up again. But there's always a tomorrow, and it's about making tomorrow the best that you can possibly make it.
It's getting back up and knowing you're not alone. That is so important, because you're not alone. Other people have different challenges, but they do understand.
Exactly. And also, if you're willing to help them learn, you're giving them the ability to understand.
Great. Then we speak of empathy.
I feel that the world needs to have more empathy for what somebody else is going through. I always say that your struggle and my struggle might not seem equal, but they're still our personal struggles, and we need to know that everyone is going through something and just be a little bit more empathetic, kind. Kindness is free, it's easy, and let's just be more open to it.
Some people don't understand what empathy is. A lot of people think it's sympathy, but it's not.
Definitely, quite a big difference. And it's important that people learn like the understanding of why we need to be empathetic.
Do you believe we can develop empathy?
I do. I think you can develop the ability to want to understand what other people are going through.
And then the last word you have is hope.
This is definitely what I live by. I live by hope in tomorrow, hope for a better future, hope for success, hope for love. But it's about finding your version of hope or inspiration that keeps you going.
So, what is your biggest hope right now?
I hope to make it to, 40 years old and have a life that everyone dreams of, kids and family and success.
What level of success have you achieved to date?
I think I've achieved more than I give myself credit for. I guess we all do that quite often. I mean, publishing a book should be something to be proud of and something that shouldn't just fall on the back burner. For me, I'm going to remember that and own that success.
Right, so you spoke of getting support to help people overcome their challenges, overcoming their mistakes, overcoming their failures, to have that support. What other advice could you give somebody who is struggling?
I think it's important to know that you're not alone and to reach out to anyone. You don't necessarily need like a mom or a dad or a sister, but it's someone that maybe you find as your support system. But it's also about finding belief in yourself. It's giving yourself the chance to fail, but knowing that you are capable.
How do you do that?
I mean, I'm going to be proud of what I do wrong. I'm going to be proud of making mistakes because that means I'm learning a bit better. But also, I've gotten to the point in my life where I know my worth and I'm going to own it. I'm going to know that I'm worth my space in this world.
Are you worth your space in this world?
I am. I think everyone is.
But not everybody acknowledges it.
They don't. And I think maybe it's also that connects to the whole giving people a chance and creating an empathetic environment where you encourage them and you show them that they're worth.
What are your next steps?
I have no idea. Everyone keeps asking for book number 2, and I'm like, no, that's not anytime soon. But for me, I think it's definitely growing my knowledge within my space. So growing my knowledge in communications, growing my knowledge in motivational speaking and social media, and growing my knowledge within my environment so that I can produce the best that I know I can.
What is the best lesson that you've learned on your journey? The biggest, most empowering lesson that you've learned?
That if you take yourself too seriously, you're never going to be happy. Most definitely. You need to have fun with it. You need to make the most of all the moments that you have. And failure is part of it, and you just got to roll with it.
Right. So now if we look at your advocacy, at the work that you do, how do you help other people?
I hope to be a source of information, like with working with rare diseases. I aim to use my advocacy as a source of information, as an ability to speak out when needed, and to create an environment where people feel like they can learn, but also reach out and maybe also collaborate, discuss. I want to learn from others as much as they learn from me.
And how are you going to go about getting that connection between people?
For me, it's keeping in contact with as many people as possible. So I'll speak to lots of people, create those connections, but then maintain those connections, check in, follow up, ask them how they're doing. Have they learned anything? What can they learn from you? What can you learn from them? Make it like a mutual beneficial situation.
And how are you doing?
I'm good. It's rough, It's always really tricky to maintain everything, but I'm really lucky for the life I focus on.
So what do you do to maintain that positivity?
I think it's about remembering all that I have in my life, reminding myself of being grateful for the people, I have a safe home, a job, I'm really lucky. And it's important to remind yourself that every day.
Gratitude, it's so important. Everybody talks about gratitude and keeping a gratitude journal. We forget, the sun is shining. Let's be grateful.
Exactly. Let's be grateful for such small little things. It's not bucketing down with rain today, I can go outside. Or it is raining, so it's watering the grass.
And when you have down moments, how do you overcome that down moment in the moment?
I've definitely learned to give myself the opportunity to be down. So it's important to take that moment because we so often say, oh, we can't be down. We must just be happy. So we must just scratch it because then you're not actually sort of learning from it. So be down, understand why you're in that bad place, but then give yourself the opportunity to move out of it in a relatively fast manner so that you know you can push forward.
Yeah. It's important that you don't stay there too long.
Exactly, yes.
And how do you find laughter in your life?
Oh, I love a good laugh. Laughter is good. It's good to laugh at yourself, especially when you do something silly. But it's about, just laughing at the good things, laughing at silly mistakes. Laughter is good for the soul. What does it say? It takes less muscles to smile than it does to frown.
You just said laughing at your mistakes. Can you give me an example of a mistake that you laughed at?
Oh, they say like don't cry over spilled milk, so let's laugh about it. I mean, every time I've been in hospital, I've tried to sort of laugh and find the joy in those good moments, like, just sort of being a little bit light.
Okay. And how can people reach you, Kerry?
I'm very active on social media. So for me, it would be sort of any K Motivation Essay social link. Otherwise, my email address is kmotivationessay@gmail.com.
Okay, I will put those links into the description below. And last point of advice for anybody who's suffering a failure, who is suffering, who is facing challenges.
It's to remember that there's always light coming. You're never alone, and to reach out to anyone and everyone who you think may help to get you out of it.
Great, that's fantastic. So everybody do reach out to Kerry. I think she's got a lot of wisdom. She's really done a lot of research. Read her book, Finding Your Feet. I just love that. And any last words?
Yeah, I thanks for having me on here, and I think what you sharing is bringing a light to people, accepting that failure's not the end; it's just a milestone.
Exactly. I love that. It's a milestone. So thank you everybody for watching or listening. Please do subscribe to my channel for other inspiring stories and messages and tips and techniques. And do follow some of the other videos. You can also reach out to me for a consultation, a free 30-minute consultation to discuss how you can overcome your own challenges. Thank you so much for watching.